Chang. She's picked these amazing wines for us to try tonight, and we're just thrilled to be here. I'm Amanda Puck. I do the marketing for Mariano's. I'm part of the Mariano's team. Here's me and Belinda in action, like we usually are. That's us in real life.
That's us in real life.
Virtually. And yeah, we're excited to be here. And Sarah from the Mariano's team is here as well to help moderate. This is a very crucial time while we're all sheltering in place and practicing social distancing, which is hard, especially from your friends and people that you love. But it is a very important time. And we decided to launch this online platform where we're gonna have cooking classes, like we had with Todd Stein last night, wine tastings, mixology lessons, kids concerts, Chicago live music, and more. So we're really excited. Belinda is a good friend of Mariano's and also of myself. She's a Mariano's tastemaker. She's an award-winning wine expert, lifestyle expert. She throws the best parties in town. So if you're not officially friends with her in real life, once we all have license to go out in the world, we definitely want to be on her list. She has secrets and tips. She knows great things about wine and what to pair them with. So she's going to go over them with us tonight. Just a reminder, if you are with us tonight, you are 21 and over. We also have a chat button that's at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to kind of point in the direction right there. So you can ask questions to myself or Belinda. We'll take questions as we go along. Please be positive. This is a positive forum. We're excited to be here with you today. If you don't want to be recorded, there's a video key right to the bottom left of your screen, and you can turn the video off if you don't want to be Mariano's famous, because we will be posting this on all of our channels. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Belinda because she's going to take us through a great wine tasting and show us what to pair it with.
Hi, so I'm Belinda Chang, and I am a native Chicagoan, although I keep leaving and coming back. So I think I left before Mariano started, and I came back, and here you were. So I was really excited to be a part of Mariano's and shop there, as we do both downtown here and with my parents who are here in Palatine. And I love everything at the store, and especially the wine selection. So we thought it would be fun to do a Wine Wednesday, and not just drink together, because it's important not to drink alone. And this is an easy way to have a group of new friends to drink with, because heaven knows it's a tough time and a glass of wine is needed, or a little something at the end of the day. So we picked 3 wines, and I spoke with Amanda, and we thought it would be fun because this is kind of dinner time. Is anyone out there cooking right now or starting to get a little hungry? I see a couple people waving. I thought it would be fun to kind of figure out what the top 3 dinners that people are buying from the store are, and then match up wines to go along with them. So I chatted with Amanda and the team at Mariano's and Sarah, and we realized the top 3 things. You can nod or wave or raise your hand. These are things that you have ordered before and enjoyed before. Rotisserie Chicken. Who's had a rotisserie chicken meal?
Woo-hoo!
Lots of them recently. My parents could rock a rotisserie chicken meal many times a week, and I just love it. And you might have wondered, what kind of wine should I be drinking with that? My other one is a frozen pizza. Everybody is so obsessed with pizza, and there's a particular vegetable pizza that's available at Mariano's frozen that I just love, and we're gonna doctor that up just a little bit. So we're doing a 3-course meal with 3 wines to justify me drinking 3 wines. The last one we're gonna do, and I don't know if anyone was in on Todd Stein's meatball class, which was so great last night, is a meatball salad, because that's something that I order wherever there is a salad available. And a meatball, because a lot of us are trying to do no carb or Atkins or any of that kind of stuff. So putting those delicious meatballs with the sauce, making kind of a little bit of a vinaigrette onto a salad is a really fun way to go. So first, I want to tell you about this one wine that I already opened before you got here. So Chardonnay, is there anyone in the group that is drinking a Chardonnay today? Is one of the most versatile grapes on earth. And I think what's really fun about it is you can grow it just about anywhere. And it makes from in low quality or, fine for daily drinking quality, all the way up to some of the most collectible and age-worthy wines in the world. So this was one that you can find at Mariano's, and it's from a legendary producer called Louis Jadot. If you enjoy French wines, you might have seen something from Jadot out and about. They make everything from a simple Bourgogne Blanc or Burgundy that is white from 100% Chardonnay through to these wines, which come from specific villages. This one is from a village called Macon, so it's labeled a Macon village, still 100% Chardonnay. And they make all the way up to wines that are Grand Cru. So when we get to go to restaurants again and the sommelier comes up with the wine list and flips you open to the Grand Cru Burgundy page, you'll know that they're coming for you and they're trying to sell you one of the best Chardonnays in the world. And it might be a couple mortgage payments, but if you're into really great wines that can age for a long time and are quite legendary, that might be a fun thing to drink. So hold it up. Does anyone have a Chardonnay in the group right now? Yay. I love to hear that. Nice job.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I love Chardonnay.
Okay, so before I make the pizza, I'm also going to get our red ready. So this is the last wine that I'm going to drink. Not today, but in this segment. So this one is called Amicone, and it's an Italian Amicone. I don't know, Mario. I'm not sure on that one. We have to double check. But it is from north of Italy, from the Veneto region. And people always ask me, when I'm having this red wine at home, what should I do? Should I just open and drink it? Should I open it and decant it? What temperature should it be? And I'll tell you, now that some of us have a little more time, I think it's really fun to pull out all of the wine toys that we have. If anybody has a decanter at home, this is a fun time to use it because a lot of red wines get a lot better. You'll notice this when you're out to eat and the first sip of the wine is like sort of fine. And then when you get to maybe the 15th or 50th, depending how much you like to drink at dinner, you realize, wow, that wine is so good now. And part of it could be because you've had some wine and there's some alcohol in wine, as we all know. It could also be because it's gotten some air. So that's why sometimes when you go to the restaurant, a sommelier or a wine steward or someone will decant the bottle for you. We're adding a little oxygen. So I like to decant wines that I know will get a little better in the glass to get them better more quickly. And here's a fun little hack for decanting. You can use anything. That gorgeous decanter that you got as a gift that's just sitting in a cabinet somewhere. You can use a pitcher. You can use any kind of glass vessel. And I'm just pouring the wine into the decanter to give it a little bit of air, open it up a little bit. And in case there's a little sediment in the bottle, I'm decanting over a candle so that I can look through the neck of the bottle and see if there's any chunky stuff. Because nobody wants chunky stuff in their glass. Well, I don't know. I mean, people like chunky.
It's kind of good if there's something.
Yeah, is there anyone out there who actually likes chunky wine?
Sometimes. Belinda, Bailey would like to know about the candle.
Yeah.
Yes. Why did you use the candle? I'm so curious.
So when you have a red wine, sometimes over time, the little solids, tartrates and things can come out of solution and you'll have some little particles resting in the bottle. So I use the candle so that while I'm pouring into the decanter, I can see if there's any sediment here and stop pouring before any of the particles or particulates or the sediment ends up in the glass. So when you have a really crazy expensive bottle of wine, some people don't feel comfortable leaving that little bit behind. So you can take this last little bit and put it through some kind of filter, even like a coffee filter or something, so that you don't have that crunchy stuff in your wine. It's definitely, as Chris Dooley can tell you, a violation of sommelier code to not decant something that needs to be decanted. Chris Dooley, do you have any comments about that?
So it's many times I spoke to the guys like, wait a second, there's still one left on the bottle. Like, no, I'm just making sure when it's clean and clear, like they would, I would put it through a filter, but the wine is going to be cloudy and full of sediment. Well, we can do that for you. Like, I just want to make sure you have clean wine in your glass. And you're usually, okay, you're looking at enough of my best interest. Quick.
That sounds a little hard, but he was agreeing with me. So anyway, we're going to set aside the amacone and we're going to go to the first course of my 3-course tasting menu that I'm cooking for you. So we're doing a little vegetable pizza that's from Frozen. And, you know, we would never typically recommend a really green sort of vegetal kind of dish with Chardonnay. That can be something that really fights. But I find that if you add like some extra cheese, and I have a little Terminator situation where I find that if you add Parmesan to anything, like not only is it better, but I think that it also makes it a little more wine friendly. If you go to places like Burgundy and to Champagne, they will actually bring you these little, has anybody visited any of those places, Burgundy and Champagne? I mean, beautiful.
Champagne, but not Burgundy.
Beautiful places in France. And so they'll serve you these little cheesy puffs, kind of like cream puffs, but they're savory and they have a little Parmesan. And I see Amy nodding with me. So maybe Amy's had these little gougères before, and they serve them with champagne and they serve them with white wine. And it's really fantastic. So you're with me in my little kitchen, and I'm going to put my extra cheese for my veggie pizza in and let it melt up just a little bit, and then I'll have my first course. So that's kind of fun, right? Veggie pizza with a Chardonnay, as long as you add a little extra parm and make the flavors like a little richer and a little nuttier, I think is a fun way to get vegetables in, right? So you get all the food groups together. What's not good on pizza, right? So that's my first course to go along with the Macon, which is from Burgundy. So some couple other notes about Burgundy. They have some great Burgundies and Marianos. They have these Chardonnay-based Burgundies like Puy Fuisse. You know, I always laugh when someone comes to the restaurant and says, oh, I've always been drinking Pussy Fussy. No, it's Puy Fuisse, and that's also made from 100% Chardonnay. Wines like Merceau, Pouligny Montrachet, Le Montrachet, Corton Charlemagne, those are all 100% Chardonnays that come from this beautiful region in France. Dijon is one of the major cities there, also known for the mustard, and they're also known for their really fantastic food and some of the best restaurants in all of France. If you ever go to Bonn, there's some fun stuff there. So I'm gonna keep pouring, and then we're gonna keep going. If there aren't any questions about this part, I didn't use all of the cheese that I had, but don't worry, it's going to come into play a little bit later. So the next dish that I had ready is rotisserie chicken for the next course. So rotisserie chicken is such an easy and amazing dinner, and I've never met a rotisserie chicken that I didn't really love. And for those of us that are feeding families, does anyone have kids in the group? I've been hearing about this new math thing. If anybody is teaching children, Amanda, is this true that there's Singapore math or something that like we don't know how to divide anymore if we went to school a long time ago?
I don't know. I'm only in charge of like the English homework, not the mathematics. That's Billy. He's right over here.
Got it. So fun. So I made, you know, a lot of people like to make everything on Sunday and then eat it all through the course of the week. And it was my birthday. So I made myself a little Morel and asparagus risotto, which after you make it, you know, you can also make it into risotto balls, like an arancini kind of thing. You can make it into risotto cakes. And it also was a main dish yesterday and the day before. And now it's a side dish for my rotisserie chicken. So we're going to do that, and chicken can be kind of an interesting thing to pair with wine. Remember that old rule where they used to say white wine with fish and red wine with meat? Everybody is cooking with some international flavors these days, so that's not necessarily the case anymore. I actually have written a lot of wine pairing notes for Gourmet Magazine. There's a couple of issues where I wrote wine pairing notes. I wrote wine pairing notes for Rick Tremonto, if anybody was a fan of True Restaurant back in the day, for his Osteria and Fantastico cookbooks, and also for Charlie Trotter Meat and Game. And it was really interesting because we learned that with wine pairing, it's not about the protein, it's about the sauce and the accompaniments. So think about it. If white wine is the only thing that goes with fish, but you take a fish dish and instead of like a butter sauce or a white wine sauce, you do kind of braised oxtail that has a little red wine in it, or mushrooms, you can take that dish into red wine territory. So you can see that my risotto is pretty rich. I made a dark brown vegetable stock, added Morels, dried ones that have probably been in my closet for pantry, 2 years. So I busted them out, and all of a sudden we have.
Belinda, someone has a good question too.
Yeah.
For you. Okay, so Kim wants to know if you're tasting multiple wines.
Yeah.
Should you start with white? Does it matter? Like what order you go in?
This is a fantastic question, and people have different strategies for that. For me, I prefer to do the lightest, simplest thing first, and then move on to richer, heavier things. So, you know, if you go to a restaurant with a tasting menu or you go to a wine tasting, in general, they'll do the sparkling wines first because those tend to be the brightest and have really nice acidity and be cleansing with all the bubbles. And then they'll move into lighter whites and richer whites, and then lighter reds and richer reds. And then they'll go into sweet wines last, just like you would in a tasting menu.
Right.
Great question. And also those dessert wines at the very end have a lot of alcohol. So I just touched my face, which I know we're not supposed to do when we go out. Now everyone has to chug. I'm just kidding.
I only have a little bit left in the glass.
You can if you want. Okay, so this roasted chicken, rotisserie chicken dish with the Morel mushroom risotto. I chose a beautiful Italian wine, and this is a Chianti from Tuscany or Toscana, right, Mario? And it's made from Sangiovese. So as everyone had a Chianti before, this is a wine that, right? I mean, is anyone old enough to have had it when it used to be in the Fiasco?
Yeah.
Right? And then we saved those Fiasco bottles and put them up on the fireplace mantle with candles and all that kind of stuff. So this Chianti is from a producer called Gabbiano, and Chianti is generally, for the most part, Sangiovese, and the most traditional recipes have Sangiovese grapes and Canaiolo grapes. And these days, it's a more modern thing. They also put international varieties. So if you're a Sangiovese heavy style, you can also add in some Cabernet or Merlot or Syrah to change the profile of it. So I changed glasses because this wine is a little bit of a richer style, and I want to be able to line up all those molecules and put my nose in and see what's going on for the aroma. So if you've got a great red wine and you feel comfortable doing this without spilling all over the person sitting next to you, you know, giving a little air to the wine without decanting, this is another way to open it up and unfurl all the molecules so that we can really appreciate the aromas. So, I mean, do you have the same wine, Amanda? It smells good.
Yeah, well, I was just, you know, this wine is a very good bargain. It's well under $10, and I was very drawn to it because it's a DOCG wine. I do love Chianti, and Billy and I were just in Tuscany in July. We can't wait to go back. But we drank Chianti like every single day, and this has it's very light. I would even think this would be a great pizza wine.
Yeah, such a great pizza wine. Well, here's the thing. So Sangiovese is a relatively thin-skinned grape, so not unlike Pinot Noir. So you're not going to get those big monster reds or styles like you do from Cabernet or Syrah. So it has such nice kind of cleansing acidity. It's bright, and it's all those aromas and flavors of like tart cherry. And, you know, they like to say, do you sometimes go to a restaurant and hear somebody describe a wine or read something in a magazine and think like, I mean, whatever, tart cherry and forest floor and black truffle. I don't get any of that.
I think I get all of that out of this. I definitely get like a very fruity, like almost like, I know we were just talking about gummy candy before we started because the teen in our house just literally went and got like every kind of gummy candy imaginable. But this does have like a red gummy to the nose for me for some reason, like very fruity.
For
it's
sure.
not as fruity
like
when you actually
concentrated red gummy. It's not like soft. It's so perfumed. I mean, you're tasting it while you're smelling it, which is true with all wines. 99% of what you're going to get will come through the aromas. So it's fun to take a minute and treat it like a great diptyque candle.
Yeah, this might be one of my new Mariano's go-tos.
I think it's really fantastic. This is one you can stockpile by the case, and it's really nice with my little dish, which I will sit down and enjoy once we get through this entire thing, although I'm really enjoying it, having it with everyone right now. So Chianti, again, is from the region of Tuscany, Toscana, and, you know, I also always suggest to do when you're trying to, or you're flummoxed about what to drink with what you're cooking or what you're eating, you can always go with what grows together, goes together. Chris, you can nod with me. This is an excellent age-old ism that always works. So, you know, in Tuscany, they're famous for things like bistecca fiorentina, those beautiful grilled butcher cut steaks. They're famous for papa pomodoro, that kind of stew with bread and tomatoes. It's a fabulous region for eating, and these wines from Tuscany are naturally really fantastic with all of those dishes. You know, there's a lot of famous butchers there, so like Dario Cecchini, who you'll see is kind of a celebrity butcher from Tuscany that will sometimes come and visit steakhouses. I know he did something at RPM Steak that was really cool. So when you need a steak wine, a Tuscan red is going to be absolutely perfecto, and I think it's also really nice with this dish that I made. Okay, so are we ready for number 3? I mean, I could sip on this all day. But
I really like the Chardonnay, and I never tried that one. This is a great, almost like a weekday wine. Like you're, you know, finished work. I love it. It goes great with the rotisserie chicken, like you said, but anything really. I mean, I can't imagine what this won't go with.
This Sangiovese, what it won't go with. I mean, it will go with just about everything. You know, I also learned an interesting lesson. I've been a sommelier here in Chicago a bunch of times, and I'm staying now, but I also did it in New York and also in San Francisco and also in Mexico City. But anyway, I was very lucky to work with some really fantastic chefs. And when you have a chef who knows how to balance a dish, i.e. balance the flavors, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and everything is in harmony, oftentimes you can find an answer for the pairing that is white, something that is rosé, something that is sparkling. So, you know, this looks like a good group of rule breakers, so feel free. You have our stamp of approval on breaking any of the rules and drinking anything you like, as long as that sip and that taste together are really great. I think I missed it, but we had a little slide. It's my fault. Sorry, Mark. He's helping us with the graphics today, where I sort of did a little bit of math because I'm a graduate of the Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy. So I probably should have gone into something a little more sciencey, but I love to go through the sommelier math for people because then I feel good that I spent all that time studying differential equations. But just so that everybody knows out there, you know, one bottle of wine is 25.36 ounces. Most restaurants will serve about 5 glasses per bottle. And for me, the perfect dinner party is between 13 and 16 people because we like to drink like 10 or 12 wines through the course of a dinner, and then everybody gets a splash of it. Though these days, a lot of us are doing just dinner and drinking for one. And I think the math of it that's really interesting is that when you find a really great dish that pairs beautifully with a wine, it's not a 1+1 equation anymore. It's 1+1 equals fabulous and yummy. So thanks to the taxpayers of Illinois for sending me to math school. That's what I learned. All right, everyone. So the last dish is going to take a little bit of assembly. So this is the salad, and we got some beautiful spinach, all pre-washed and really easy. And I think all of these meals are pretty gorgeous when you put them together with a great glass of wine. And this is the meatball salad. And wow, this is packaged really well. I can't even figure out how to open it.
I think that's the Simple Truth one. The Simple Truth. Yeah.
This is a 50-50 blend. So I love spinach and these kind of darker greens. So I'm just gonna toss together a little spinach salad. And I love this time. I mean, there are some upsides to having a little extra time on our hands and being home. I have like this really fancy sea salt that was given to me. So I'll do my Salt Bay. And then I have this fancy pepper grinder that I never get to use. So a little salt and pepper. And then, I don't know, I found this in the back of my pantry too. So there's some pistachios. This crunchy in a salad is really good.
This is a good time to clean out the pantry. You know, even when you're getting fresh groceries, but just seeing what you have in there. It's fun to experiment.
I found fancy olive oil that someone gave me as a gift. I don't even know when. I found some vinegar that I, didn't even know was in there. So that's it. You just toss yourself a cute little salad. Maybe the Parmesan goes in there too, or on there too. And then that with a little meatball. I mean, these meatballs, Amanda, I know.
So we have these new items at Mariano's, and they're perfect, especially for right now when you have kids at home and you don't want to cook. They're $9.99 meal, $9.99 meal solutions. These are our meatballs that are really delicious. We have salmon, lobster mac and cheese. We have a chicken, Italian chicken breast, but they're all $9.99 and they're perfect to feed a family of 4.
So I feel like if you're doing date night with someone at home and you show up with a little meatball salad and a bottle of something in a decanter, they're going to think that you really worked quite hard. And I think you're going to make yourself Instagram famous and generate a lot of FOMO like those kids like to do. And so I'm pouring a little of the red wine that we decanted earlier. So as I showed you, this is the Amicone. So this one is from northern Italy, from the Veneto region, the Northeast. And in the Northeast, they make super fantastic wines, which you might have had before. Valpolicella might sound familiar, or Amarone. Both Amanda and I share a great love for Amarone. And it's interesting. So those wines are made from 3 different grapes. There's one called Corvina, one called Rondinella, and one called Molinara. And they let these grapes get quite ripe. They have interesting trellising if you ever get to visit there. I mean, we can all go together when this is all over. It's beautiful. So they actually trellis the grapes a lot higher and taller than most people do in other parts of the world. And they actually then harvest the grapes quite ripe and they let them lay out on these straw mats in big lodges called, the mats are called gratici, and there's huge mats where they almost raisinate the grapes. So you take these really powerful concentrated grapes and you make wines from them, and these Amarones are just the most decadent elixirs. If anyone's ever had one before, you put your nose in, it's like this pungent, incredible sort of jammy aroma, and they have incredible texture. There's all these producers like Quintarelli and Del Forno that are quite legendary, and they make these crazy wines that are considered some of the kings and queens of wines made in the world, collectible, ageable. So the fun thing is that the great producers also make another level of wine. Before everyone joined, we were talking about how some of the great designers, couture designers, make lines for Target, and also will do how do you say it, Valli? Giambattista Valli, you know, fabulous couture designer, made a line for H&M. So some of us could get a little bit of couture in our lives. So a lot of the great winemakers will make their Amarone or their Bordeaux or their Grand Cru, and then they'll also make another cuvee that we can have on a daily basis if we want to enjoy it. So this particular one from Amicone is made from the Corvina grape only and doesn't undergo some of those crazy processes like the Amarone and the Valpolicella. They don't go through the drying and all of that. So you get kind of a more simple, but also suitable for drinking with Doritos or
That's a great grocery pairing, Belinda. That might win the prize.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. Doritos in this wine would be super fantastico. So, but you still get, you know, the same people that are incredible winemakers putting all of their care, and the viticulturalists in those vineyards putting all their care into growing some of the best grapes and putting them into a wine like this. But, you know, like, who wants to spend a mortgage payment on a bottle of wine every day? Not me. I want to drink things like this that are just delicious and remind me of great times and traveling through the Veneto. So these tend to be kind of, if you look at the color in a wine like this, it's a little more opaque, it's a little harder to see through, and these are thicker grapes, and you have a little more intensity, a little more alcohol, you know, better buzz for your buck than some of these others. And it's a great food wine too. So with red sauce, I love these wines. So, you know, tomato can be a little tricky for some wines from other parts of the world, but no surprise. I don't know, it's quelle surprise in French. I don't know what it is in Italian, but no surprise that these Italian wines are fantastic with anything with tomato and red sauce. And I love to drink them. So there's also, of course, a little cheese in that salad and some nuts to make it a little richer. So this Amicone should be really, really fun with the meatball salad. I'm gonna have a sip, Amanda. Have you tried it already?
I've had it before because we do feature this at Mariano's, and we are the only retailer actually in Illinois to have this wine, and it is very special. We had a lot of it over the last holiday season, and we continue to feature it. But I do think for a red wine, it's from Italy especially, it's very affordable. Again, it's like an everyday easy drinking red that does go with multiple dishes. I see Rebecca on the screen. I think she has a really good question about decanting that she wanted to ask you.
Go for it, Rebecca.
Oh, yeah.
Belinda, I was wondering if I don't have a decanter, is there something else in my house that I can use?
Absolutely. Anything glass. So I've used a glass vase because basically you just don't want any material that's going to affect the wine. So just like when we open a capsule on a bottle of wine, we try very hard to make sure a lot of those capsules are lead, that we don't want that lead capsule to touch the wine because it can actually affect the flavors. You want something neutral and something glass. So I've actually got jugs, glass jugs that I use sometimes as decanters. And hey, when you go to like a little small village in Italy, sometimes they will decant into something like this. It doesn't have to be something super fancy. I think I've got a little coffee carafe, the one for the drip coffee that someone gave me as a gift and I've never used. That could work. You have all kinds of options. And then the other thing is, you know, I see lots of different styles of glassware out here in our Wine Wednesday, which is really fun. I've been breaking out my fancy glasses because, to be honest, I don't have a lot of the fancy glasses. A lot of them were samples from when I opened restaurants and I only have one or two. So when I have a big group of friends and I entertain quite a lot, as Amanda knows, I love to have people here and cook. You know, I use kind of the not as nice glasses because they all match. And then when y'all come over, you can break them and I won't, you know, extract payment. So I'm using all my nice glasses now and most of them are a little bigger, and doing this will also do the same, some of the same work that decanting the wine will do. So get your swirl on, but like I said, if you're not good at it yet, it's best to do it on a flat surface. So that you don't get it all over someone who's wearing their favorite white dress for Wine Wednesday. But you know, this will also do the same thing. We decant to add oxygen to the wine and help it kind of unfurl a bit. When we're drinking something with a little bit of bottle age, the vintage on this is a 2016. So if you think about it, this delicious wine has been trapped in a bottle with only just a little bit of air coming through the cork for a few years. So we want to give it a chance to sort of stretch out a little bit, which is why we do it. I also just think it's really fun. I suggest it as a little tip and trick for when you're entertaining. Like maybe you're entertaining some people you don't love that much and you don't want to have to open the expensive wine for them. If you decant it, they'll just assume that it was something fancy.
Perfect. That's a good one.
No. Mm-hmm.
Just
Like,
because we're talking about decanting, Belinda, would you ever, because I remember there was like this whole thing a few years ago, would you ever aerate or decant a white wine?
Yes, that's a great question. So, you know, there are lots of different styles of white wine. As we were saying, if you're going through a tasting or you're tasting a lot of different wines, you want to go from lighter things to richer things. So, you know, if I look at wines that I can buy from the store, there's anywhere from like a really easy Sauvignon Blanc that's maybe a little lower alcohol and has a little less weight and density to it, all the way up through a great, big, rich, buttery Rombauer Chardonnay.
My favorite.
Amanda loves Chardonnay. We've had Chardy parties with fried chicken, which
we have had Chardy, but we're gonna actually one of the next classes is going to be, well, I guess it is a Chardy party with
Chardy party,
drinking champagne and yeah, fried chicken. So we'll have Belinda's upcoming schedule posted soon, and trust me, this is great. But the next one's coming up, are not to be missed.
Oh, thanks. Wait, so where were we? What were we talking about again?
Aerating and decanting white wines. And then we're talking about Chardonnays.
So there are on the other end of the spectrum, white wines that almost feel, have you had some that are so rich and so full-bodied and so buttery? And you're like, oh man, you know, it's even that is changing in the glass like a red wine does. So there are big whites that do get better with a little bit of decanting. So, you know, play around. I don't think there's any wrong answers. You can do whatever the heck you want, whatever you want, and make something delicious for you is absolutely the right thing to do. So yes, I am for decanting like a big, rich, full-bodied Chardonnay, maybe an old Chateauneuf-du-Pape Blanc. If anybody likes those wines from the Southern Rhone Valley, there are some that are made from a very high percentage of Roussanne. There's a famous producer called Chateau de Beaucastel that makes this Roussanne Vieille Vigne, which is one of the best wines I've ever had. And also a Terminator. One of the hardest pairings is wines that will work with asparagus. So this is one of the wines that I love to have with vegetables. So yeah, I mean, decant away.
All right.
You can also do things like chill your decanter to make sure that decanting it doesn't take too much of the chill off of the wine. We'll do all kinds of, should I tell you some of the tricky things we do, Chris?
Sure.
Okay, so
No, really, tell us.
Sometimes the red wine is like a little too chilled and not ready, and you've got like a restaurant critic or a Michelin inspector at table 10, and you're like, oh my God, if we don't get the extra star because the wine temperature wasn't right, you know, the chef is gonna murder me. So sometimes we'll decant the red wine into a decanter and gently warm it under a stream of warm water. I'll tell you, I've done some dinners with some pretty fabulous people with famous chefs and put bottles in the freezer. Wine is actually pretty tolerant. It's a living thing, certainly. And, you know, we always love to treat it like the baby, but you can do all kinds of things to it and it'll still be delicious and fine. And if you find yourself with a bottle that you just don't love, make it into punch. You can add vodka. Add some vodka, add some fruit, add some orange liqueur, and voila, it's delicious. Wine cocktails. This is another solution for those bottles that people gave you and you're like, oh, I don't want to drink that. Luckily, we don't have that situation here. These are all.
Well, speaking of that, we have a few questions from people who are watching, but I have a question. If you get a bottle of wine as a house gift, and I'm sure, I don't want to put you on the spot because I'm sure you get it all the time, and we do too, and you don't love it, would you re-gift it, or would you make it a punch? Would you keep it for, you know, a large format drink or something?
Well, a lot of people always ask me, it's kind of funny. I mean, especially when I've been working in these great fancy dining rooms and people are like, oh my gosh, you have the best job. All you do is walk around and talk to people and pour bottles. And I think to myself, oh, you didn't see me, right, Chris, like running up and down the stairs with cases and stocking and like tearing out my hair with the 10,000 bottle inventory where we had to count everything one by one. All that being said, I love to learn. And so the beauty of being a sommelier or getting gifts is that you get to try a million different things. Right. I think if it's something you've never had before, just open it. So if I were to pivot my camera, you would probably see not a graveyard, but a nice little collection. I'm not going to call it a junkyard either, but it's a lot of things that people have sent me to try because it's nice. People sort of value my opinion about wines and they've come from lots of different places in the world. And so I'll try it. If I love it, I will drink the whole thing. If I don't really love it, but it's still a good, sound, properly made quality wine, I will cook with it. So I once worked with a chef in San Francisco and I got the privilege of doing, if anyone's heard of Robert Parker, he's one of the greatest well-known wine critics of all time, did a Zinfandel tasting at my restaurant with me. So we tasted literally, I think, 2,000 different Zinfandels, this much. So I had 2,000 bottles of Zinfandel with this much in it. And we took it all. The chef was so clever. We dumped it into the big plastic bins that chefs have in professional kitchens. And he reduced it all and then froze it into ice cubes. So cooking with wine, this is what you're saving the wine for. You can.
That's actually, I never thought of doing that, but there's so many times like you're making a sauce or, you know, something and you need a little bit of wine and you, save it that way. That's Belinda.
Open something new. I mix them all together. Like if I have a little bit, and they're all good wines. I mean, what's more delicious than like chicken braised in wine or beef braised in wine or vegetables braised in wine or some kind of bourguignon? It doesn't have to be Burgundy. You can use anything. A mushroom bourguignon would be delicious, or something with beans stewed in wine.
Right.
It's a delicious ingredient. It's not just for drinking in the glass. If you have a little bit left and you're not going to get to it, you know, and then there's also those interesting closures, which we were talking about earlier, Amanda. People have a lot of interesting ways to preserve wine these days. Coravins, somebody was chatting with me yesterday at Todd's class about using that little thing that inserts a needle into the bottle so that you don't waste any wine. So if you don't want to just like open it, drink some, use the rest for cooking, you can also use some of these devices that pump out air, or just grab I
have it here so we can do it later. But I love this. I mean, we're not, you know, we'll save these wines if we don't make them into ice cubes. No, I'm teasing, we won't because they're good. But these actually preserve wines for days. I mean, I feel like we could use this in the red wines, and I think for at least 2 days they'll stay fresh.
For sure. if not longer. You're just pumping out the air because
Right.
air is what affects the wine, right? We like the air when we first open a bottle because it helps everything unfurl and brings out the aromas and also the flavors and helps it sort of open up. But
Right.
after that, we want to take all the air out, right? Because if you
Right.
want to preserve the wine for a little bit longer so that you can have it for the next few days, then you want to get all of the air away. That's why there's those little sprays to put into bottles with the little
Right.
straws. That's why there are those pumps like you have. That's why there are those corvins and things like that. So you want to keep air out if you want to keep the bottle for a long period of time. I also, this is my favorite $2 gift because Chris and I love sparkling wine, and some of the other people here too, I bet, love champagne and Prosecco and Cava and all that kind of stuff. So this costs, I think, maybe $2. And if you have a bottle of champagne or sparkling wine, you put this on and close it like this, and it keeps all the bubbles in for weeks or longer. I've had bottles of champagne with a little closure like this on them last for weeks, which is pretty incredible. But do be careful because after a couple weeks, when you take this off, it goes wrong. So
Belinda, Mario Risotto is on the line here.
Yay.
Can someone unmute him? He's under telephone. Well, he has a question.
Yeah, great. Mario, let's start.
Hello, how are you everybody? You enjoying?
Buonasera, buonasera.
Buonasera a tutti. Buonasera a tutti. I'm not gonna change some of your Italian words, but I'm gonna have a chat privately.
Go ahead.
Starting from Amanda. Amanda, it's Chianti, gnocchiante. But
Oh,
I love
I'm
you, babe.
sorry.
I'm just
I
kidding.
know it's Chianti. I
Hold
don't know how
on,
to pronounce it.
Belinda, it's Sangiovese, it's not Sangiovese, but it's okay.
Sangiovese.
But I love you anyway.
Sangiovese. Got it.
These days,
Don't
as
forget we
long
can
as
put
you
you
guys,
back on mute.
as long as, yeah, thank God I was on mute because, but let's don't talk about my English about that, eh? But
No,
jokes
it's
aside,
perfect.
Belinda, you are a very well-renowned celebrity sommelier, according to me and according to many people.
Oh,
But I have a question for you.
please.
What's your point of view about pairing the red with meat, pairing the white with fish? Unfortunately, I don't know if you knew it, but actually I was a sommelier at the age of 18 in Italy because we don't have drinking age over there. And I had to pass all those very tough tests. I'm not a master sommelier. But the good thing is that when we were doing that, we were teaching us whatever suits your taste, you can pair it. If I'll tell you right now, I'm a big fan of Amarone, as I am a big fan of just a very simple wine from Modena. So therefore, it just, what do you think?
I love, well, listen, so Italy at the last few statistics is up to maybe 1/3 of global wine production before all this craziness happened. So listen, I know that you visit people in Italy, winemakers, and they tell you things like, my grandfather's 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 grandfather planted this vineyard. So if anybody's going to be super incredible about making the most delicious and greatest and food-friendly wines, I think the Italians have a lot of us beat. Listen, I mean, we started in California at maybe someone's grandfather. So they're going to take a little bit of time to catch up. So as you know, we met at some of the restaurants that I ran where I had 100% Italian wine lists. So I'm a huge lover and appreciator and constant orderer and drinker of Italian wines. So I'm a big fan, and thank you for joining us from so far away. It's like super cool, and we're all thinking of you and everybody in Italy because we know it's been kind of a rough thing. So I love these wines, and I think we should always support them and support everybody. I think also California winemakers, everybody in the world right now needs our support, especially small family-owned operations. And the more we can do to buy their products, and in some cases, if we can also for those wines, for the really small places, buy directly, that's going to help them to survive this whole crazy thing. So we have a fun question from Carrie Levins.
That's a good
Love
one.
to hear from her. You are unmuted, Carrie.
Oh, hey. If you are going to stock up on a case of wine and you don't know what you're going to be eating, what would be your strategy? What do you want to make sure that's included in your case?
So it can be a mixed case. Is this the challenge at hand?
Mixed case.
Mm. Well, listen, as a lot of people know, and, you know, I went to New York and this guy wrote about me and said, we don't know about this girl. She's from Chicago. She's real bubbly. So I've always been known as someone who loves sparkling wines. I just think that when it comes to something that is ultimately food friendly and that will work with just about anything, sparkling wine is magic. So listen, if it were my case, it would be filled with Prosecco and Cava and champagne and all that kind of other stuff. But I do know that there are people that don't love bubbles in their wine and don't love sparkling water and prefer still. We can still be friends. But I was always look for wines that are really balanced. Right? So there are wines where you're like, oh my God, like it's so high alcohol, or oh my God, it's got so much tannin, it just like evacuates all of the saliva in my mouth. I think those are wines that are maybe not necessarily for food. You know, you want wines that'll kind of hang in there and add a little spice. I think wines a lot of time add flavors to a dish, right? So I learned about a lot of this stuff when I was going to school in Texas. I went to school in Houston, Texas, and not a lot of people know that when I was there, I worked in a pretty fancy kitchen. It was like a mobile 5-star, AAA 5-diamond. I don't even know if those things exist anymore, but it was a very fancy place. And we were always eating game meats like venison with blueberry sauce and wild boar with fruity sauces. And so, you know, if the right sauce for the venison was blueberries, then if you found a wine that had blueberry in it, like a Shiraz, we don't have an Australian here to correct me, right? But like a Shiraz.
Maybe next week we'll have one.
So if you found a wine that had like a lot of blueberries in the nose, it sort of added that to the dish, and it was really beautiful. So in my mind, I always kind of visualize what the flavors in a wine look like, and then I try to decide for myself that those flavors will be delicious in the dish, and that's going to make something that's great together. And you know, I don't think it's wrong to open lots of things and try them all and see what works, and then drink that, and then save the other stuff for later, or use it for making a sauce later. That's a great question. Thank you so much.
I think now is a good time to try different wines. I mean, where, you know, everyone's under quarantine, and, you know, I think that most people are tasting wine every night, but I think it's a fun time to try different things and see what you like, maybe branch out a little bit.
And most of us don't have to drive, so that's kind of great.
Right.
I was really excited when a lot of states in the US passed these doggy bag laws. Has anyone taken advantage of those? So you're at a restaurant and you finish your first bottle, and then the entree comes, and you think, oh, what are we gonna do? Should we order another one? There's no way we're gonna finish it. But in Illinois and New York and a lot of other states, you can not finish it, and they can just put the cork in, put it in a bag, put your receipt in, and then you can drive home with it.
Right.
So there's no harm, no foul to getting that second bottle, because then you can keep it going when you get home. So I really love that as an option. But yeah, you're right, Amanda. Right now, I'm probably, oddly, is it odd or not? I'm drinking more wine than I've ever drank. Ooh. But maybe it's because I'm getting to do it with so many people that I don't normally get to hang out with, and I think that's super fun. So
I agree. Can we backtrack a little bit to the Chardonnay? You know, I always have to bring it back. Could we go through like the flavor profile of this one? Because I think this is such a great, affordable wine, and I just would like to talk, like, can you talk us through the tasting?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's really interesting. Chardonnay, you can make a lot of choices, right? So you can grow it in a lot of different soils, in a lot of different places. It's actually unlike a grape like Pinot Noir, which is a minx of a vine per Jancis Robinson. Chardonnay can do pretty well in a lot of different places and a lot of different climates. So the winemaker and the viticulturist make a lot of choices. So this Macon is made in a cool climate area. So even on the nose, you don't get like super heavy alcohol as you do in some Chardonnays, and you don't smell as much of that malolactic or ML, to say those kind of like buttery aromas and buttery textures that you would get if there was a lot of ML in this wine. So this one is really bright and sort of high toned and green apple versus mango or pineapple, which are also flavors that you can, and aromas that you can find in Chardonnay. So to me, this also has kind of like a a minerality to it. A lot of people argue about whether there is really minerality in a wine. Like, can you really smell rocks? And so who's here? Are my parents gone? Okay, good. So I once in college passed out outside of this bar called the Marquee, and it had white gravel driveway. This is in Houston, and it was raining. So I might have passed out in this white gravel driveway and got all this white stone dust in my hair. So when I woke up the next day, my hair was out to here. I mean, I looked like a crazy drag queen, and I'll never forget that smell. So that smell is the aroma you get when they say like, oh, I smell white rocks, or I smell, there must be chalky soils involved here. I get that here. There's like a minerality. There's kind of like a white stone sort of kind of chalky thing, but Macon is a little further south in Burgundy, so you get a little warmer climes and higher degree days, so there is kind of a little more richness to this than there would be in Chablis or any of the appellations that are farther north. Is everybody, do you get that, Amanda?
I do get that, and I love what you said about the soil. I didn't hear the gravel story, so I do like that.
That's a classic story of mine.
I know, I can't believe I don't know that. When I drink like Etna Rossos and like wines from the Etna region, I definitely do get that like a minerality, like that.
Yeah. Stone
soil flavor. I feel like I do notice it here a little bit, but this is unlike what people would normally think a Chardonnay to be. This is a different, but in a good way. It's like easier,
Yeah.
It's a little cleaner. But I
definitely sometimes too, Amanda, like find those aromas in reds. I don't know. I see a lot of red wines out there. Is anybody smell, we've got a pretty epic chef here, Margaret, but she's not letting me unmute her. I'm trying. So for those who haven't been to Risotto, which is an unbelievable restaurant here in Chicago and was on the long list for the James Beard Awards for this year, you gotta get there at some point. But she has an unbelievable touch with spice and flavors and all that kind of stuff. Margaret, what are you drinking?
I am like not moving out of our house right now, so I'm drinking Cabernet right now.
Good. I love it. But I mean, where is the Cabernet from?
Admittedly, this is probably a gift.
That's okay.
It is a mix. It's hold on a second.
This is a safe space. There is
here.
Oh, looks delicious. Ghost Pines. Okay.
Yeah, because I was trying to get the mix from the back.
Any minerality there? Like anything interesting to speak of in terms of what you smell? Because I know that the food that you guys do, what is the region from India that you focus on?
So the food that I cook is from the region called Kerala. It's a
Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
Can't go back
We
to
can hear
that.
everything you're saying.
Oh wait, did it work?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're good.
Okay,
So-
got it. Yeah.
So like tell us about the kind of spice profile and what happens in that region and what we might find in a wine.
So I guess I'm pretty ignorant about the wines of what would pair with the Indian cuisine there. But what I can say is that the Kerala cuisine that I cook with is really aromatic based. So cardamom, cinnamon, black pepper, like those are the predominant spices. But on top of that, depending on what I'm cooking or what it is, there could also be like cumin or like certain types of chili, whether it's like more like smoky chili or more like pungent chili or more spicy chili. So different types of chilies too.
And those are all definitely aromas and flavors we can find in wine all the time. So,
yeah. I guess like the part with the coconut part, when you were talking about what grows together, I'm going through my mind, what would grow with coconut?
I don't know. Where do they grow coconuts, Amanda? I don't know this.
I don't know. Let me Google that really quick while we're talking. And I think Tracy had a really good question. I don't know if we can unmute her, but she's asking, what wine do you recommend with Indian food?
Me, personally? Let's see. So
Medium spicy Indian food.
Okay, so we have a lot of experienced people here, so they can nod or show their dissent. Vouvray, I think, Chenin Blanc. Chris is nodding, Carrie's nodding. Margaret's maybe nodding, she doesn't know. So Vouvray from the Loire Valley is made from Chenin Blanc, and it comes in a lot of different sweetness levels, right? So there are sparkling wines at all the different sweetness levels. So I think with coconut, you need something that has just a little bit of residual sugar and also a lot of texture. So I think that would be a fun one. Maybe also, depending on how sweet the dish is, something that's demi-sec style. So like demi-sec champagnes have a good bit of sweetness to them. So I think that would be really delicious and cool. I think you definitely need something with viscosity and richness and a hint of sweetness to work with something that's got a lot of coconut. Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, do you guys remember when every dish in a restaurant, in a fancy place especially, had foie gras?
All the time. Like that's, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And it was really, I think it was hard for sommeliers to figure out what's going to be great with this livery, rich, decadent dish. And people took all kinds of different methodologies to figure out what would work. I sometimes, in these fancy restaurants that I worked in, would have no idea what the right match was. So I would just play a game and bring you 3 different wines. And I wouldn't tell you that I was hoping and praying that one of those things would work, but I would ask you as the guest to tell me which one you thought was best. And that was really fun for everyone. So.
That's why you're so good at what you do, because you're so, engaging, and yeah. And it's, I think it's nice to try multiple things, because then you can figure out which one, and something that you might love with foie gras, I might like the other choice, but.
Yeah, there's all kinds of options, and I think there's no wrong answers. It's only wrong if it tastes bad to you. There's all kinds of ways to deal with all of this, and like I said earlier, the overall thing is, if you love to drink it and you don't care that you're drinking a Cabernet with fish with a white wine sauce, and
right,
listen, do what you want to do, right? It's live your life, friends. Do that. Right. So anyway, so to go back, Amanda, I think that this wine is really well balanced. It definitely shows kind of Burgundy technology and know-how. Jadot is a huge buyer of grapes, and also a pretty decent sized landowner in Burgundy, where it's very political, who owns what, who's allowed to buy what. And this is a wine that is like classic, correct, proper, and never a wrong answer.
Yeah, I agree. I love it.
Everybody wants to give me.
Thanks for picking it. I think it's great.
Thanks. Look, I think it's actually very reasonable for, what this wine is and what it represents and where it comes from.
Yeah, I think all of the wines today were, if not $10 or $11, they were under $10. So these are all really good value wines. I mean, this is stuff you can, I know someone asked about what to drink during the quarantine, but I take any of these. So
so fun.
Yeah.
No,
so we're gonna get ready to finish up our first Wine Wednesday with Belinda, which has been amazing. So we'll take any last minute questions if anyone has them. But I will let you know that we're going to start posting Belinda's upcoming classes. Next week will be epic, because it's Belinda and our favorite theme is fried chicken and sparkling wine. So we're going to be featuring 3 different sparklings and all different kinds of fried chicken and maybe some other fried things that go with it. So I know everyone in my house will be psyched that night, because we'll get to eat it all. And Belinda, you have like a really great event on Sunday. So why don't you let everyone know about that too, because you do so much good.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So a lot of people who I've met before know that I've worked as a sommelier and run operations for restaurants for a long time. And then after that, I started an events business. And like for a lot of people, my events business completely evaporated a couple weeks ago. So that was a little scary. And then I decided that I just wanted to help all my friends who are in my situation, and maybe even worse and scarier. So every week on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we invite sommeliers that are not working, and also our chef friends and other experts in how to live well, and we bring them all together. And I don't know, Amanda, you've been a couple times, and some of the people here have as well. It's kind of
to all of them. I love Carrie Levins is on, and she oh my god, that was so fun last week. Carrie, I didn't get to really interact with you, but your frittata tips were fantastic. The cocktails that you guys made, the quarantine cocktails were wonderful. I mean, it's really great, because I love the Sunday events that you do, because you get to really interact learn, and it's not just about wine and food. It's, you know, you have like a mental health piece. Yeah, so
we cook together, we make cocktails together, we obviously drink together, as you should, on a Sunday afternoon, and then we also do that to benefit the people who need our help. So we allow them to do the thing that they love to do, which is provide service, and then we take care of them. So it's really cool. So everybody is always welcome to join us on Sunday, and of course now on Wednesdays too. Thank you, Amanda and Mariano's, to, you know, keep our glasses full and keep our spirits full and find some brightness in our days and have some fun together in this crazy time. So yeah, that's all.
All right, everybody, before we end, we're gonna give Belinda a happy 2 days after her birthday toast. Her birthday was on Monday. We got to celebrate on Sunday, but Belinda, happy birthday. Thanks for being here today with us. This was really fun. I love the way my face just fits inside the wine glass.
It's a good shot.
I know, it's great. I love it.
That shot is like real good.
Yeah. Thank you for your expertise. And cheers, everyone. Stay safe, stay home. And we'll see you next week with Belinda. We also have a class tomorrow with a mixologist from Reka Vodka.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I have so much vodka to use up.
Join, because he's making, I know he's making an espresso martini, and we might give him pantry challenges. So you have to like find the funnest stuff in your pantry, and he'll come up with a drink for it.
He'll tell you what to do?
He said he would, so I don't know. I mean, Sarah, don't you think he would do it? I think, because I'm
Totally,
yeah,
he's
he
so
said
fun.
he was game. He said, give me the challenge. Let me know what you have, and I'll come up with a cocktail. So.
I mean, Amy, Alessa, Rebecca, everybody, Elizabeth, all of you guys who are here and on video. I think you're doing like such a great thing to, you know, help others and also help yourselves. This is how we stay sane.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Bye.
Woohoo.
Thank you.